So I'd like to make some introductions. First of all, I think pretty much everybody here knows Charles, yes?
That's why we have full seats.
Charles Hoskinson, founder of Cardano, Web3 visionary.
We've done a few things.
A few. We've got Mike Ward, the Chief Product Officer of IO. Daniela Barbosa, who's the Hyperledger Foundation Executive Director, and a strong member of the Hyperledger Identist community, Jon Bauer of CSign. And I have to make a correction because this is my fault. I put him as CEO. He's actually head of product, so my apologies for that.
You've been promoted.
So Charles, let's start with you. So you've been a Web3 visionary, you've been involved in a few blockchains. You were an early investor and an early visionary on SSI and digital identity. Why?
Well, pretty much everything that we'd like to do in the fintech space does at some point require a notion of identity. I mean, if you look at legacy finance, there's never going to be a case where you have a big pile of money without a name on it. We used to call those bearer bonds or cash. And when you look at 2024, every single thing is, who is it? Where did it come from? What's the story behind it? And so you need some primitive to be able to inject identity into the Web3 space. It's not optional. Then when you think about property rights in general, the NFT, well, who owns the NFT? Where's the provenance? Where did it come from? Real estate. What's the story of it? What easements do you have? When you start deconstructing things, it's almost impossible to find something in the legacy business world that doesn't have a strong need for some concept of an identity. So then the question is, can you get universality? Can you get portability? Can you get provability? There's dozens of properties that matter. And the first challenge for us in the cryptocurrency space was, do we try to retrofit an existing standard or conception, or do we create a new standard? And so what Manu did and Chris Allen did and a lot of other people at the W3C is they came together and they created the DID. And that was a big step forward in creating a conversation around not only how to create a new standard, but then also how to make that standard interoperable and retrofit with legacy notions that we had. So we always knew that we would be involved in this space, and it was a build or buy consideration. You know, do we build something from scratch, or do we just pick something off the shelf? But my biggest concern is a lot of the directionality of identity has historically been very centralized. So when you pick something off the shelf, you end up turning over all the things that make you decentralized to a central actor, and you've collapsed the entire story of cryptocurrencies now to one agency or two, which defeats the entire point of Web3. So we realized that the only way to move forward was to be a pioneer. We actually had to not only build, but we had to innovate and develop new protocols and push things forward. So identity is a first-class citizen for everything that we do.
Thank you. So now that you built this world-class platform and the corresponding SDKs and APIs to be able to incorporate it quickly, why did you choose to donate it to the Hyperledger Foundation?
Well, you know, it's open source software, so it's kind of funny to say we donated something when that thing was already in the commons. So it was less about, do we take something proprietary and do we make it open source? It was more about what is the appropriate governance around the evolution of this technology. And one of the superpowers of Hyperledger under Daniela's leadership and the community that's been constructed there with over $6 billion of open source software is they can kind of bring in a great team of people and a great team of use cases to help you think around a product backlog and how a product backlog needs to evolve. You know, for me, I'm a consumer and customer of it. You know, we use it in Lace and we use it in Reflect and we use it in other ventures. So identity is always going to be there. Midnight's probably the biggest use case for us in that respect. But for it to be real, it has to be useful for beyond IO. And so we thought, well, the best enterprise working group for blockchain technology is Hyperledger. So it made a lot of sense to find a home for it there.
Completely agree. So Mike, as the Chief Product Officer, you're responsible for really driving vision and executing on that and making that work across all the different products and services inside of IO. So how is SSI fit into your product strategy?
Yeah, so first off, I don't think I drive the vision, I collect it. So I collect it from those that have it, including Charles, but also from the people that actually use the systems. That's where the real answer lies, right? So for me, I think I had a long history in financial transactions with blockchain prior to joining IOG. And a lot of the use cases you see in the financial world today, we used to talk in the early days, belonged on a public blockchain. It's an open platform, anybody can publish to it. But we also prided ourselves on anonymity in that platform, and that precludes a large number of use cases. If we want to start moving real world assets on chain and start doing transactions where trust is a big factor, we need to start having strong authoritative facts around identity. So you want to know who your counterparty is in many transactions. So it unlocks a huge set of use cases for what we could do in public blockchains. That's the starting point of it. The technology, of course, is very independent of blockchains. Blockchains are a fantastic way to anchor DIDs, but this same technology really can live in the Web 2 world, which means that we can start bringing facts into websites, et cetera, and bringing those users back into the Web 3 space. We can start empowering dApps to verify facts about people, to store those facts, or in Midnight's case, to store those facts not as facts any longer, but as proofs that they were verified as facts. Really, really powerful use cases start emerging that you cannot do in the existing financial system today. But it always leaves me with one question. The technology part of this is fascinating. It's very well evolved from when I first got into this space. You mentioned 3 entities earlier. So the issuer, the holder, and the verifier. The verifier is easy. I take something, I want to verify the fact. The holder, we all love the holder aspect of it. That's the self-sovereign part. My question back to you, having been in this industry for decades, is how do we get the issuers into this? We have a whole engine built. We need that fuel put into it.
That's a great point, Mike. And we've had a number of discussions about this. Really, it is about combining and bringing forward the Web 2 world to the Web 3 world. On the Web 2 side, we have identity access management to support things like SSO. We have customer identity access management products like ForgeRock and Akamai and Auth0 to deal with high volumes of customers. And those products are used by banks, Home Depot, Nordstrom. They deal with those large customers. They're not going to just jump to Web 3 because they've already made huge investments in that infrastructure. But with SSI, we can sit on top of those and still provide that federated layer. And that's where the migration begins, because you're going to have dApps that go directly to the chain. That is a given. But bringing the larger organizations means going where they are and utilizing the infrastructure that they have paid for, that they have the knowledge of how to use. So that's a really good point. And being able to leverage those and still bring them over into those new applications, those new services. You pick up users en masse. Daniela, thank you for being here. We're excited to have you.
I'm very excited to be here. It's the first time I've seen the Hyperledger Identitas logo in the big screen, so it's fantastic. I love it.
We were pretty excited about that. So we've had a number of discussions, but I'm going to ask you, why is Hyperledger the right choice for Identitas, and what do you expect the future of Identitas to be in relation to the overall vision of the Hyperledger Foundation?
Enjoying the event? Fire up that wallet and delegate your ADA to Rare Stake Pool. For over 3 years, Rare has been committed to providing high-quality staking services. And we're now Chang Hard Fork ready. Thank you for your support.
Sure, and I'll start, maybe some people in the audience don't know what the Hyperledger Foundation is, because I think it's really important to understand that Hyperledger is one of the projects over the last 8 years working on blockchain and digital identity, open source projects and communities and ecosystems at the Linux Foundation. And the Linux Foundation for the last 30 years has been the home, I would say, to some of the most important open source projects, obviously the Linux kernel, hence where we got our name, but many others across many industries, whether it's cloud computing or automotive or even the film industry. And it's really a place for companies and individuals and governments to come together and collaborate on building community code and communities that learn from each other, collaborate in how they bring these tools to markets, right? Some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that you were just talking with Mike about. So Hyperledger Foundation was formed in 2016, and by 2017, our community knew that digital identity, much to your presentation, David, which was fantastic, by the way, around why the importance of digital identity was just going to be critical as our lives, whether as enterprises, as companies, or as individuals, or as things, right? Things have identities too. How critical digital identity was going to be as part of these digital ecosystems and our digital world. So starting very early, we started working with the community to bring these code projects into the Linux Foundation and some into the Hyperledger Foundation specifically, and we've continued to grow those communities. And what that means is as innovation happens, it's happening within the Linux Foundation, within the Hyperledger Foundation, and now within a project like Hyperledger Identis. And it's really a community of people coming together. And I think one of the things that is really important is that you could open source, and Charles said it, you could open source code and you could put it on a GitHub and you say, hey, everybody, you can take a look at my code and you can use it and you can download it. But the open governance and the open development principles that a foundation like ours brings to the table really helps on a couple of things. One, it helps bring people, developers and maintainers who you might not expect to come in, right? Because they might not be associated with your company or with your own ecosystem. So you're widening the breadth of people that come in. The second thing is you get more users and people who want to adopt the technology because they know it's openly governed and openly developed. One of the things that we do at the foundation is we make sure that there is essentially three things. One is the developers are happy. Developers have the tools that they need. And from what I've seen, the Identis maintainers and contributors, we've seen a 26% increase already in contributions since the project has come to the foundation. We see them creating meetups and workshops to get more developers interested. And we see end users like Jon here, talking about how they're using the code to implement and to basically, build their businesses, right, on top of the open source code. So that's a healthy community there. The second is training and education, making sure individuals, developers, and business owners understand what SSI is, but more importantly, what these protocols and how these protocols work. And the third is building a commercial ecosystem. And much like our other projects within the foundation, I foresee vendors coming on board to help support Identis, so that if you're an individual, you work at FedEx, for example, FedEx was on the stage earlier, and you need to work with a vendor to implement these solutions, you don't have just one vendor to choose from, you have 10 vendors to choose from, because this is code that is in the open, it's openly developed and collaborated. So it's a really important move for input-output to contribute this contribution, the Atala Prism team, and really be committed to building that ecosystem out. Input-output have been members of the foundation since 2018, I believe, in contributing in multiple ways, not just as members, but participating in our events, doing our roundtables, and really talking about why open source is so critical to the Cardano ecosystem and to all the products and groups that Mike and the rest of the team oversee. So we're very delighted, and I said this recently to Charles when we were in Rio. The team, the maintainers, and I wish they were all here on stage because they're the ones that should get the limelight. They've done a tremendous job at showing up, being humble, being open, and being so constructive with what's going on in the rest of the ecosystem that we're just delighted to have them.
Well, we're delighted to be part of it, and we really appreciate all the support we get from Hyperledger, so thank you. So Jon Bauer.
Yes.
Really excited to have you here because while the rest of us are actually part of building the platform, not only are you part of driving and building the platform, you're part of actually consuming it in your products. So if you could, give us a little background on your current product, CSign.
Sure. So CSign is a new way to sign, certify, and verify agreements privately using SSI and Cardano. And you can imagine that a product like that, it's very important. So for example, if you want to sign a contract, or if your boss is going to approve a big budget for a big project or something like that, you kind of want to know that the people involved in that agreement are who they say they are. And so identity is critical for that type of project, of course. And so we use DIDs for that. And of course, you can combine that with KYC if you want. But I think it's somewhat obvious, as you mentioned in your talk, people now know that you can use DIDs to represent people. and this is, what people think you can do with this, and of course you can, and we do that. But DIDs are so much cooler than that. You can do all kinds of stuff with DIDs. So, yes, you can represent people with DIDs, but you can also represent things. And maybe even more importantly than that, you can represent relationships with DIDs. And this is where we think things get really, really interesting. So, for example, in CSign, you can represent people, and you can bind. So you can represent and bind people to people, people to things, things to people, which in CSign, the concept of an agreement in CSign is actually a DID itself that can issue verifiable credentials, and that gets very interesting. But also, DIDs can be used to represent machine to machine or service to service, and there's all kinds of really cool creative things you can do with that. And we're just having fun exploring all that and building. So,
Fantastic. In fact, you have many members of the CSign team here, so we're excited to have you.
Yes, CSign audience there.
So, aside from just consuming the product, consuming the platform, you're actually a very active member in the community. So, how does your participation in the community, how has that been working out? What's been the advantages, and what would you say to other people who are interested in being part of that community?
Sure. The community is great. The Identis community is just super great. I'd say the biggest thing that comes to mind is just collaboration. Everybody's in Discord, everybody's learning together. There's so many awesome projects that are coming up on Identis. I can probably just mention a few, but Socius and Block Trust. And there's just this economy of other tools that are being built. So we are consumers of other people's tools, and we hope they'll be consumers of ours. So there's a lot of collaboration and integration going on, which is awesome to see. Eric Deneau is creating, linking Identis to AI. There's all kinds of really cool stuff that's going on. So it's just a really fun community. All you need to do is join the Discords. There's a Atala Discord, there's a Hyperledger Discord, and just say hi, and everybody will be welcome and happy to point you along the way. Say hi to Fayad, and I'm sure he'll find the right people for you. But it's a great community.
You've been involved with this community even before I was at Input Output, and really helping drive that. Now you're writing a book about Hyperledger Identis. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So one of the fascinating things about Cardano, of course, there's many points of Cardano, but Project Catalyst is one of them. And in Fund 11, our lead engineer, Roberto Carvajal, and I won a grant to write a developer-centric book about building and launching production-ready apps on Identis. And we learned a lot by building CSign. And we sort of wanted to share the tips and tricks that we learned. And so now we're writing a book. The book itself is open source. We're writing it in public on GitHub. And all the accompanying example apps for iOS and Android and TypeScript, they'll all be open source as well. So it's just another way in which parts of Cardano are sort of itself a force multiplier in Catalyst and that. And so that's been a great experience. And we're hoping that helps other people get started quicker.
Fantastic. Well, we're gonna wrap it up about there, but I encourage everyone here to go to atalaprism.io, where you can learn more about how to join the community. Also go to hyperledger.org. There's just an amazing amount of information and tools and platforms to choose from in building your decentralized applications. To do it so quickly, lots of training, lots of support. So we look forward to you joining our community and being an active part.
Thanks, everyone.
Rare Evo 2025 tickets are on sale now. Save big. General admission passes are discounted to $250, and VIP passes are only $800. Join us August 7th through 9th, 2025 at Caesars Palace, Las Vegas. Hurry, only 30 days left to save. Visit rareevo.io and buy your tickets now.